café mudou de freguesia, deixamos de tributo a quem lá para um louco a fazer-lhe companhia. É sempre a mesma pose, o mesmo olhar de quem no meio dos dias que vagueiam, sentado lá continua a cravar beijinhos às meninas que passeiam. São os loucos de Lisboa que nos fazem duvidar. A terra gira ao contrário e os rios nascem no mar. São os loucos de Lisboa que nos fazem duvidar. A terra gira ao contrário e os rios nascem no mar.
Good morning and welcome. This was the photos that have been shared with us for the photo contest. We will announce the winners afterwards. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Luciano Saso, the president of UNICA, for the welcome addresses.
So good morning to everyone. I will be very brief this morning because we are looking forward to listening to the declaration by the students, but very briefly, I want to thank again the University NOVA de Lisboa for organizing this event digitally together with the UNICA Secretariat. It has been very exciting in the last few months to work so hard in a different way. We know that, of course, it was disappointing in the beginning for students to know that they were not going to meet physically in Lisbon, but we try our best to create a roadmap with several warming activities, webinars and different meetings. And then in the last 2 days, I know that the students worked very hard in the 10 fora, to work for this declaration. So we are looking forward to listening to them in the next 2 hours. The students will present their declaration, and UNICA will do its best to disseminate this declaration, first of all, to the leadership of the 54 UNICA members, and then to the policymakers in Europe, to try to make sure that the ideas of the UNICA students will be implemented in Europe in the next few years. So at the moment, before giving the floor to the chairs, we have an important announcement, and it is a great pleasure for me to leave the floor to Professor Luca Pietromarchi, the Rector of Roma University, who has a very important announcement for you.
Thank you. Hello to everybody. Thank you, Luciano. Good morning to Professor De Matos, Vice Rector of NOVA University. Yes, UNICA is looking forward, let's say. We are not scared by the future, and it's with a very great pleasure that I can announce that the UNICA Student Conference in 2023, we are looking really forward, but with faith, will be held in a very, very special place. It will be held in Italy. It will not be in Rome. It will be in the southern part, in the south of Rome. It will be in the middle of the sea. It will be in an island. It will be in Ventotene Island, a very special place, about 1.5 hours southern from Rome. Then we take a boat, 1 hour of a ferry boat. And there it's a very, very special place in the middle of the Mediterranean, wonderful place, but with a huge historical memory. Professor Merluzzi will speak about this choice, but many of you know that Ventotene Island has been the embryo of the idea of Europe. It's there that was written the Ventotene Manifesto by Altiero Spinelli in 1941, where it's described the idea of a European federation. And it's on that, let's say, dream at that time that we are living, and we have to renewal as often as possible the spirit of that document, the spirit of that island. And so we think that to have the UNICA Student Conference in Ventotene will be really a great event. And because I think that Ventotene counts some 500 inhabitants, I think we are waiting for 250, 300 students. It will be really a nice, huge event. Thank you, Luciano Saso, to giving me the opportunity of making this announcement. We are very proud. I'm doing this announcement because in Ventotene, we are starting a very important law study foundation. It will be a sort of university place where to study, especially law and history of Europe. Thank you, Luciano. Thank you to everybody. We are waiting you in Ventotene. It's not tomorrow, but it's after tomorrow. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Rector Pietromarchi. Thank you very much, Luca, for this announcement. Indeed, is a very important place for the European Union. Professor Merluzzi, also from Roma University, later on today will explain more about the meaning of Ventotene, but I'm sure that many of you know very well this island and the symbolic value of this island for the European Union. I also hope that some of you students will also participate. I say only some, because I also wish you to graduate very soon, to finish your studies. So in 2 years, I guess that some of you will not maybe be students anymore, but maybe you will be doctoral students. So maybe some of you still can apply for the participation in this event. So in UNICA, it would be nice to have a continuity between events and also in the new normal after this terrible COVID period. We are planning to have online activities, in the next few months and years before the event in Ventotene. So I hope that some of you will continue to work with us and help to prepare also the participants of this event in 2023, and actually to organize a very good event. So now, without further ado, it is a pleasure to leave the floor to the chairs, and I think that the first one, if I'm not wrong, is Inês, who will take the floor.
Yes, just give me a second. Okay. Hi, I'm sorry for this time lapse.
Inês, let me, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry. I was just, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm sorry, because I wasn't finding the document. I don't know why it didn't show as previously. So hi everyone, really exciting news that we were giving. I think it really is a symbolic place. So it's very exciting for those who will be able to participate, and hopefully you guys can, or those who will be participating will be able to have a more complete experience, mixing from what we have learned in this session and with benefiting from the in-person experience. So I was the chair of topic 1, Science in the City. We mainly so started from the fact that the presence of universities in their cities impacts not just local economic dynamics, but also their demographical renewal and communal relationships. Their privileged pit stops in the root of knowledge and innovation fluxes. This being said, universities could have a more active role serving their cities in many ways, in making their student body and local community intertwine and learn from each other, becoming more resilient, developing fitting ways to meeting challenges of different natures, such as that of COVID, and keeping up with general world development and progress, and reorganizing whenever required. So the interconnection between people and territory was shown to be that it could be weakened, but at the same time that it still does has advantages. So it means dematerialization of the learning experience means less commuting, less relocating, and general expenses with housing and traveling, which of course impacts the carbon print of learning, but it does have several disadvantages. So it means, of course, less fluid communication, and not so natural, or it's less easy for there to be non-planned interactions. It obviously may weaken the academic spirit, since students may try to reproduce the academic community, but in a digital format. Of course, the experience is not exactly as complete. It may increase the bubble effect, which means that people stay where they are, even during their academic years, and it obviously depends on their own background and family and socioeconomic conditions. Their learning experience will be much more conditioned by that. So, globalization, of course, provided by digitalization, doesn't necessarily mean cosmopolitanism. So we need to actively break this algorithm, which means, of course, we have to, in some way, still foster interpersonal relationships and try to build academic community, and make general interpersonal bonds, even if adapting to what we now know after COVID. So it may, and I'm sorry for the spelling mistakes, because I'm now identifying. So it may mean that students will have an equal university and learning experiences if there are no conditions for them to actually be on site, because again they rely on their own background. And so the fact the argument on carbon print also applies to technology. We have it's not very much talked about, but we know that technology does have this does cause carbon emissions, and it's not merely relying on dematerialization of the learning processes. So even if we stay at home, our homes usually require adaptations to be power efficient, and more importantly, of course, the changing consumption general overall consumption habits has a much more impact. So said relationship between people and territory, even applying to the academic context, is still essential. It can be improved in many ways. So we find that state, central, and local government and universities should behave as stakeholder partners, maintaining contact, and universities should focus also on serving the city they're locating in. Interactions between local population and students could happen using science as an intermediary, and this even in, from a in-person or from an online format perspective. Learning from each other and solving problems together. So this meaning that putting local population and the academic body in contact does provide for learning opportunities, benefiting both the academic projects, but also providing citizens with critical tools, making them more self-sufficient, able to provide for their own communities, and more resilient to change. So again, this relationship can be weakened, but some aspects should be considered when thinking how to move forward. So it is important for students to have a full academic experience that provides them with good social integration, interpersonal dynamics, soft skills, that they're given more stimuli, and that communication flows. Also, because it also provides for better exchanges of knowledge and culture. Our conclusions were mainly based on these points, so focusing on a lifelong learning options, citizen science, learning cities, digital challenges, hybrid learning systems, and the importance of infrastructure, which we believe still remains relevant. Regarding lifelong learning options, we believe this is important to closing the gap. Of course, connecting with all the other conclusions, but this is important to close the gap between what happens in our daily lives as citizens and what is academically explored in more deep ways. And and even academic discourse should be more familiar to citizens. For this purpose, lifelong learning options should be offered so that citizens can accommodate the acquiring of knowledge throughout their own lives, keeping up with updated and scientifically validated knowledge. So citizen science may be an important tool for this purpose. The idea with citizen science is that citizens are involved in academic research, and they may be required to provide data, just to observe things around them in their cities, or stuff like, I don't know, the material climate changes that they are able to observe given their closer connection to the environment around them, because since they're locally based, they do have a personal contact with local realities, and so they may be able to provide academic projects with their insights and also their workforce to help gathering data and other tasks and contributing with other tasks. And so in our topic, we believe that this is an important tool to get citizens familiar with scientific jargon and methods, and this is a way of empowering them with critical tools that will allow them to better analyze information. For example, the example that was provided by Nina Kunze, which was a very active participant. She, of course, COVID showed us that a lot of information that was new to people became mainstream, and but prior to that, and a lot of people didn't know how to interpret that information. And
sorry to interrupt, but just to let you know that you're at the limit of the 10 minutes. So
okay, yeah, I'm gonna.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Move forward. Okay. Of course, this is a way to avoid fake news, and again, allow citizens to use science for themselves. So research projects should turn outwards and look for options to involve local populations in academic work. Again, citizens' proximity and symbiotic social and ecological relationships may be leveraged on. These are opportunities for dialogue and mutually beneficial learning. So in order to provide for this teaching of the language of science, partnerships should be in place with local schools, but they can also be put in place with elderly homes. The idea is that this familiarization becomes early on, and that, for example, what is being explored in the academic field is presented to regular citizens, so that they become in contact with academic work, thereby not just understanding, becoming more familiar with the language, but also understanding the purpose of what is being worked. And this means also that in the academic field, advertising and promoting achievements and projects should be deemed as an important part of academic work. So, but in order to better inform non-academic citizens and to establish these connections. So, this being said, while developing our RTD initiatives, universities should again look outwards and actually provide for citizens' inputs, maybe on local priorities, or even in a way to solve, to help to solve actual and current problems. This obviously doesn't go without challenges, especially given that we will probably rely on or have to find out the hybrid systems of education. But this may imply widening a digital divide and exposing inequalities, because as said, lots of students, if not moving on-site or not learning on-site, may
Inês, we really need to keep the time because we have 10 presentations,
sure.
so please try to conclude.
Sure.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, so alternative opportunities to connect should be provided. Hackathons are a very good way of putting citizens in touch with the students. They help solve collective problems and level knowledge. It was an example that students found very important to put in place, and also it can be mainstreamed in a digital format. So to provide for the digital divide, computer learning programs and digital training should be put in force. Universities may contribute to human resources to provide technical assistance regarding this this aspect. Hybrid learning systems should be put in place, but only to include, and it should not mean financial discrimination. So students willing to learn in person should also be given that opportunity, which finally makes us come to the still relevance of infrastructure. So universities should be able to offer affordable housing both for students and for professors, because it's still important to attract prestigious scientists and scholars to build this community that will be probably lacking. So public infrastructure such as libraries, auditoriums, sport facilities can be seen as a place where these communal relationships can be developed. and they should serve the citizens and not only the student body. So this is the end. Sorry for extending my time.
Thank you very much, Inês. Very interesting. I understand you have a lot of things to say, but I really ask all the chairs to keep the time because we have 10 presentations, one after the other. So it's really important because at the end we will have the feedback from the coordinators of the UNICA working group. So we need also some time at the end for the feedback. So, but very interesting, Inês. So let's continue with Forum 2, the chair of Forum 2. And again, please keep the time. Thanks.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I'm Juan. I'm the chair of Group 2, and I will be talking about inclusion. I'm going to share my screen. I will try to be super fast. Okay. You can now see my screen. So in Group 2, we have been discussing about equal, diverse, and inclusive universities. This is an extremely relevant topic, a very big topic. So in our discussions, we focus on certain elements. I will share with you, let's say, the general perspectives along with some concrete recommendations connected to them. The first thing that we discussed was that higher education plays a key role in achieving fair societies. Nowadays, we talk a lot about the importance of higher education to prepare students for the labor market, but we should not forget that first and foremost, higher education is a way to improve our societies, to really help people to climb the ladder, to improve their lives, and in general to improve the, let's say, the common good. Therefore, our policy should be oriented in that direction. When we talk about inclusion, we talk a lot about access, and that's fundamental. Really trying to get new people into higher education, first generation students, students with disabilities, and students from all kinds of backgrounds. But as important as access is, this is not the only element of inclusion. Retention and a quality experience should also be considered when we talk about inclusion. So once that the students have already joined higher education, then we need to focus on keeping them for their whole study so they can actually be successful and achieve their degrees, and also ensure a quality experience that is at least as good as the one that their peers who do not come from disadvantaged backgrounds are having. For that, something very, very important is to move from concrete and target approaches that maybe only parts of the university implement to whole institution approaches. This means that inclusion should become a central element of institutional strategies. All the universities should be involved, starting from the leadership. For that, we also need collaboration with the stakeholders. So it's not only up to the university to make changes, especially when it comes to access and retention. We need to work along with schools. This is extremely important, to have fluid collaboration between schools, high schools, local municipalities, regional governments, NGOs, etc. So we can ensure that the students first enter university and then stay. Also super important, guidance, training, and peer-to-peer support. The figure of academic advisor, people that can proactively go to the students that have special needs and help them without the students having to actually reach out for guidance, which can, disencourage the students, can make the students a bit unaware of all the rights that they have. It can make them a bit self-conscious about whether they should ask for help if they need it, etc. So for that, the best way is to go directly to talk to the students and to clearly explain them all the rights that they have and all the support that they can get. I'm very connected to that. Social integration must be prioritized. We're talking before about the importance of a quality experience. So university is not only about the academic part. It's about being part of a community. It's about interacting with people. It's about creating a group of friends. It's about creating professional links. So for that, socialization is key. Peer-to-peer support. We present some recommendations related to, for instance, mentor programs, buddy programs that can connect students, both with special needs and without special needs, training for teachers, for staff. So all the people working in university are actually capable to provide the right support. Then when it comes to target group, there are many different target groups. They are all very relevant. In our group, we basically focus on students with disabilities, refugees, and migrants. We also believe that For UNICA universities, this should be a key priority. And of course, each different group requires concrete measures. For instance, when we were talking about disability, all the aspects related to socialization were super important, but also things related to the digital divide and to the importance to make inclusive online content. And now that we're moving more and more online. And then capitals are normally very big cities, and big cities tend to have more refugees and migrants. In a time of rising populism, in a time of very difficult conditions for many refugees and migrants around Europe, we also need to prioritize this. We need to prioritize the target support, which focuses not only on helping those students who come from refugee background, but also to make sure that all the students in the university are aware of the challenges that these students face. Then, especially after, in the aftermath, actually, during the COVID pandemic, mental health and support is central to inclusion. Students with special needs have especially suffered the consequences of the pandemic, and this is especially complicated when it comes to mental health. So this should become more important, and indeed for that, we need cross-sectoral collaborations with local governments and regional governments. When it comes to raising awareness, inclusion is not only about helping those who need it, it's about creating a culture that allows every student to understand how we can improve society, how we can improve our universities. So for that, we should embed societal challenge in the curriculum. All students should learn about the main problems that our world is facing, also in terms of inequalities, in terms of racism, in terms of xenophobia, and different elements that make our world a bit more complicated nowadays. And then lastly, a participatory approach, the importance of representation. This already happens in most universities. So most universities, especially UNICA universities, do have channels for representation and participation, but the inclusion perspective should be more included. So students with special needs, students coming from disadvantaged backgrounds should always have a voice in the topics that concern them. It shouldn't be other students talking about their needs, but they should be empowered and they should be the ones really expressing their concrete needs, creating that dialogue with leadership and stakeholders. And this is all from our side. These are the list of the students that were collaborating, more collaborated in the run-up to the conference, but these last days, these have been the ones participating. And thanks a lot to all of them. It has been a great pleasure to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juan. Very interesting. Now we proceed now with Forum 3.
Hello, guys. I'll just share my screen and get my presentation up. So my topic was Europe's position in world politics. And firstly, while I was the chair of this group, I was a bit of an unexpected chair. Unfortunately, there were some things that Diogo couldn't be with us, unfortunately, so I volunteered. And I'd just like to thank everyone who collaborated in my group, because I think as a group effort, it made it far easier. I think we had some very productive discussions and they helped draft this declaration. So without them, I don't think it would be possible. So before I go ahead, I'd just like to thank them for making this a very enjoyable seminar and being online and everything. So firstly, I think with Europe's positions in world politics, compared to some of the other global leaders that leaders are facing, such as China and the USA, they don't have some of the tools, such as the hard power that these countries have. So in order to influence Europe's position and standing in world politics, I think universities and the increasing of soft power plays such a big role. So as you can see from this map here, there's a number of high quality universities across Europe that expand, and that there's a lot of teaching in these. And I think that if we can kind of mobilize and use these universities as mediums through which that we can expand Europe's soft power, I think it'll increase its standing in the global politics. And I think one of these plays has to be is norms and values. So one thing is a common history and a common goal. So while European member states and maybe looking at the EU, like they come together as a bloc, but it definitely feels that there's a sense of fragmentation between them, and they aren't always necessarily together. I think history can be quite a complex topic, especially when it comes to conflict, and this can mean that some. Oh,
there is a strange sound in the background.
Oh, really? Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy. I'll see if I can move over a little bit. Sorry.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Jack, Jack, they hear the waves. Sorry, I'm just moving now.
These are the, things that happens today in the conferences. So no problem, Ewan. Please go ahead.
Sorry, can you see me, or you can see my screen, which is the more important thing.
Please go ahead.
So I think the implementation and the funding of research of a common history for Europe is very important, because I think a common history will help promote a sense of solidarity among European member states, and by having one concise history, it will allow Europe to act on the global stage as one unit, which will increase its standing. And I think the way that we should look to implement this is through universities. So firstly, I think this should be done through foundations and centers which will fund this historical research and implement this. And then once founded, it can be taught both academically and extracurricularly. So for academic, our group proposed the idea of modules for students, maybe especially Erasmus students who are going on exchange, that they can learn this history and get this sense of shared solidarity between people. And secondly, there's the idea of extracurricular. This can be done through culture nights or cultural exchange nights that will hopefully promote this sense of solidarity and allow Europe to act as one. Secondly, there's the influence of Europe through academia and soft power. So one thing that we thought was very important was the autonomy and integrity of intellectual and academic research. And we discussed the idea of establishing an independent European body that can monitor and report instances of academic abuse and censorship. With the rise of large donors and interest groups in academia, academics, they become not so autonomous and maybe subject to interest groups. So by providing a watchdog that can be set up to monitor and possibly sanction these universities who aren't facilitating independent research, Europe can look to be a global leader, both in terms of standards as well as a prime location for independent research to come in and study and do their research and hopefully find some interesting findings. So by becoming a global leader in this sense, Europe can extend its reach of soft power and look to influence the world on the global stage. So that's more or less my presentation. I know it's a little bit short, but thank you very much, guys. Sorry for the problems with the Wi-Fi, and thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing the rest of the other topics.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ewan. Very interesting. Let's continue with the next forum. So, the chair of Forum 4.
Vasco?
This is me, Luciano. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see it?
Okay.
You can see the presentation?
We don't hear you so well. Vasco, please increase the volume of your microphone.
What about now? Can you hear me?
It's a bit better, but still you can maybe try to increase it a bit.
Okay.
Speak maybe.
Yes, this is, I don't know what's the problem.
You can try to speak
This happened yesterday too.
loudly.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you so much for the group of, for our group of working group of social media and European societies, because I really think this was a very creative and a very insightful discussion. We were in the end thinking already very much in depth about the problems and the difficulties that exist for the solutions, the difficulties that will, the obstacles for many of the solutions that we proposed. And so as was decided for the conference, we left more general, but still, I hope, specific enough to promote a change in university and society's behavior towards social media in terms of making it a better place. Social media is one of the most powerful tools for global information and public influence. We need to acknowledge this and understand that there's a big shift in how information and and influence exists in social media. And this has risks naturally for individuals and society. We found two main groups of risks. One of them is related to misinformation, naturally, fake news, polarization, and information bubbles, propaganda, undisclosed algorithms that select what we see and have uncertain um, social effects, and of course targeted advertising misinformation, which means that anyone can pay to reach a certain message that is unverified a lot of times to millions or billions of people. Um, this information has proven to be capable of causing social harm, put public health, for example, and individual health at risk, and promote unjustified hate, discrimination, and distrust in institutions. Um, and the other big risk as a group is mental health and well-being, because the way we relate to each other, the way we live, the way our values exist in society are changing for social media especially, but not only for younger generations, related to self-esteem, values, addiction, anxiety, social media peer pressure, cyberbullying, and yet to be understood broader societal impacts that can include a deepening of inequality. Although this was discussed that not every it's not completely clear, and so we need much more research in this area, which will be one of our recommendations. But certainly information bubbles and types of information bubbles can make inequalities worse. Of course, just in the context, COVID-19 is just another example of the good, the bad, and the ugly about social media. This is an article from 17th of July. The majority of COVID misinformation in the US came from 12 people, from 12 profiles. This is incredible how misinformation can be organized and spread with different effects, but certainly with a lot of impact. So we made recommendations for action for universities and society. In terms of education, efforts should be put towards the development of campaigns, tools, and courses with focus on social media literacy, media awareness, information bubbles, critical thinking, and critical appraisal of content. And this should be promoted in all educational settings with easily available online tools. And universities should lead the development of these tools, promoting and advocating for their application and evaluating their impact so they can be improved. In terms of research, there needs to be a real decision to prioritize multidisciplinary and cross-faculty research groups on social media and the creation of social media departments in universities with adequate, transparent, and ethical funding. This was also considered very relevant and related to the last presentation, fundamental for university integrity and independence. And this is one area where the research really needs to be independent. They should not, of course, be funded by big social media platforms, or even some NGOs might come with a conflict of interest. Research areas should include education, misinformation flows and bubbles, impact on social media and mental health, the functioning of algorithms, which all of this we understand are very difficult to research, but which this should be promoted, because we are very blind here in all of these aspects, and we need certainly more knowledge and more university working on this. And then the definition and impacts of regulations, naturally. Universities should be close to governments and regulators to support and inform the development of social media policy in terms of advocacy. And on the other side of the people, communication departments of university are very important departments, and they need to step up, and they should consider social media as a critical area of public communication to connect universities with a broader public opinion, and to put universities in an important, higher importance level for the average citizens as a defense of independent thinking, knowledge, and democracies. Regulation and platform strategies must be advanced to promote the defense of users with support from universities and research insights. And so we have some ideas: more power over advertising and content preferences, settings. Algorithms should be more transparent, and they should be, better understood by academia and by society. Data should be shared with universities for clear and ethical research purposes. For example, studying what could be considered high-risk information bubbles, etc. Paid advertising should be traceable, and strategies should be in place to avoid large misinformation advertising campaigns targeting specific groups. Efforts to prevent interest in bubbles and to buffer or avoid misinformation should be promoted, although we recognize this is probably hard to do without strong collaboration from the platforms themselves. A simple approach to categorize advertising and risk content should be considered, and we already have certain information about credible content, for example, on COVID-related posts in some social media platforms. There should be educational ads and campaign courses on social media promoted by the platforms as a social responsibility effort. And the platforms finally should share responsibility over contents as an incentive to improve content quality according to their policies and international regulations and recommendations. And finally, this was very discussed, that all regulatory and platform strategies must be cautious to protect individual freedom online and access to quality content without compromising freedom of speech and opinion, its various components. This is one of the very difficult parts that will follow, and universities should monitor and evaluate these strategies as they evolve, because action is needed, because not doing anything is proven way riskier than not acting. But we need also a balanced approach to protect and improve democracies in the years to come, and also to protect freedom of speech, and try to be more, of course, also act on education, also act on empowerment of user, but this alone will hardly be enough, considering the dimension and the vulnerability that we have to some types of very well thought, very well designed types of misinformation. And thank you so much, and also to the group, that we hope we can contribute to a better approach from universities and societies to these problems.
Thank you very much, Vasco. It's very interesting. Let's continue with the next forum.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I think it's topic number 5, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. 10 minutes. Okay, so good morning. I was very honored to collaborate with UNICA. I'm president of IYNF, International Naturefriends. And we work together with the students about sustainability in higher education. We talked about why it happens, why it doesn't happen, let's say the geopolitical aspect of it, and what are the obstacles, what are the timelines for HAYS, which is higher education institution, in order to apply it. Let's say after all those talks with all those students, we came up to very concrete bullet points. I had very motivated students. One of them at the beginning said, I'm here because I would like to be part of the reforming universities to sustainable universities, trying to change the future. So let's say for me, UNICA kind of represented changing the future. Bullet points. Our recommendations are toward governmental sectors and higher education institutions representatives. So, surprise, inject more budget for sustainability. We didn't talk much about budget because this was very concrete that we need more budget to benefit, let's say, to address the benefits of sustainability within the haze. And let's say after that, we thought that one of the biggest important changes we need, and it was also according to one of the conversation we had on a presentation with UNICA that a professor mentioned, set missions, change the missions of universities to a more manageable time frame toward the sustainable oriented curriculum. And this way, maybe we can actually put incentives to tackle sustainability in higher education. Create a European guideline. This was a very interesting point that came out. That is basically to have a global or European guideline. So not every institution has to, yeah, okay. That not every European institution has to deal with trial and error themselves. It would be very fundamental to have a guideline of best practices and how to apply them in the universities in order to save time and resources. Updated the staff. We realized that with sustainability, there's a lot of misunderstanding of terminologies. There's a lot of updated data, scientific data is coming out of it, and how to tackle sustainability is completely a continuous procedure of changes. So there should be a continuous update training for teachers, lecturers, deans, and presidents in order for them to achieve sustainability more in their classrooms and in their working environment. Soft skills, future skills. In a lot of scientific data, this is one of the biggest things that universities can offer. And well, soft skills, as in leadership skills, entrepreneurial skills, critical thinking, design thinking. These are the skills that actually universities with their educational power can inject to the system, to the curricula and extracurricula. And this will end up with students graduating with more sustainable approach to the society. Social hubs in Hayes. University has a lot of resources, one of them is space. And in order to put students together with what is happening outside the doors of academia, one of the ideas was to create social hubs through student associations or different organizations, NGOs, in order to create a community, a local community within the university. And brand new courses. There are some cases that they're being open new job positions for sustainability managers in higher educations. And for that, there are not many courses that are offering multidisciplinary sustainable development oriented curricula. That's why we came up with the idea of actually injecting new courses about multidisciplinary sustainability within the higher education. So those people can be the future generation of experts. And I'm very interested that students actually brought this topic up. There's a lot of pressure on academia or academic, let's say, ambassadors. There was a talk that there's not enough time or resources for PhD students, professor, researcher, lecturer to get out of the research bubble and like have the opportunity to research beyond their field or have a secure position in order to have a better work-life balance. And this is not helping at all for them to develop other skills rather than what they're already researching on in their field. So let the academia breathe a bit. Sustainable offices. This was, let's say, one of the most practical points we came up with, that within every university, we should have sustainable offices and sustainable managers. They can have access to different faculties. They should be in contact with the dean. That we will come back to how we thought that we should break the hierarchy in the next points, but there should definitely be a sustainable development for long-term thinking within the higher education institutions. Multi-sectional approach, galvanize action between multiple stakeholders, from NGOs, local communities, to cooperation, to let's say industry, and all put all these sections together in order to have solidarity for an urgent global problem. And university is one of those few institutions that can actually have that approach. They have the resources, competencies in order to connect all these sections. Global connection for global problem solving. Yes, more global realities like Erasmus Mundus, but other bigger global reality to understand and tackle global problems. Make it accessible to take part in other faculties' curricula. This was also a very important point, to let students go to other faculties and take other courses that they feel needed for themselves, and they can be given extra credit, ETSCs, for that. So they are being rewarded based extracurricular, extra faculty, let's say, activity. Break the hierarchy via czar figure. Basically, this was this came out last year, last day, and that this czar figure, that is a terminology that means that somebody that has support and president of university. This person can be like a reporter that goes to the sustainable office and can break over all these hierarchical positions and just directly report to the president. So then there is not being time wasted and, let's say, bureaucratic procedures stopping the flow of information. Extracurricular activities. This comes from also side of NGOs and European Commission activities, because a lot of universities, university students don't go to European activities, European Commission activities, because they are not going to be recognized at universities. So if university can find a way with European Commission in order to recognize volunteer-based activities or youth exchanges, that would be very motivational for students. Help recognize European Commission's youth initiatives. And last but not least, long-term planning for integrating long-life experiential learning methodologies into curricula. We know that it's not easy. We know that academia is not, for now, academia's curricula is not made for experiential learning, or at least not in the biggest part. But we are hoping to see it in long-term planning. This was, for example, one of the examples of a timeline we made via services, curricula, governmental and built environment changes we need. I can attach it to the declaration. And yeah, we think that through sustainability in 21st century, sustainability in higher education in 21st century, universities can actually touch one's soul. So thank you for your attention. I will stop the screen share.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paria. Very interesting. Now we proceed with the forum 6.
Yes, thank you. Just a second for me to share my screen. I hope everything is visible. Okay, so speaking of topic 6, we have dealt with the topic of engaging international students with local communities. My name is Mohnacki, and I was, well, until a few days ago, a board member at the Erasmus Student Network. The main focus points that we have focused during our discussions were the socio-cultural and language barriers that students encounter when going on a study abroad period, whether it be an exchange or a full degree studies abroad. Access to information, so either the information not being accessible in English language or several foreign languages, or information simply not being accessible anywhere, so not having any space for the information to be displayed. Community engagement activities, so the opportunities for international and exchange students to engage with the communities, with the local students, with other local citizens and members of the local communities. Recognition of extracurricular activities, so about how we can reach and how we can achieve the recognition of community engagement activities. We have also focused on the development of intercultural competence and working and teaching in intercultural classrooms, as well as access to services connected to housing, health, and employment. When it comes to the target groups, of course, our target groups were international and exchange students. And during our discussion, it was very important to make a clear division between who international students are and who exchange students are, since exchange students are students who are usually going on a short-term mobility, while international students are usually going for a full degree or at least several years to study abroad. And integrational needs of these students are very different. So it is different to integrate someone who is going to be there for 6 months. The path and the journey is quite different. Whereas international students have a very different integrational path, since at one point their needs start changing once they become fully integrated into the community, but they still remain foreigners inside of that community. The recommendations are mainly aimed at the universities as well as the communities, with the emphasis on civil society organizations. Starting from the first point, which is the internationalization of higher education and development of intercultural competence in both students and staff, which we found very important, especially in this globalized world, and with both exchange programs such as Erasmus Plus and international study abroad programs being more and more global and expanding outside of Europe and welcoming more and more students into our universities, as well as sending our students into different cultures and different continents. So the first thing that we have touched upon is, like I mentioned, the socio-cultural barrier. And we have focused a lot about the language and culture courses for students, which are often non-existent, and often are a first step for the students to be better integrated into the communities, knowing the language of the city or the language of the country, behaviors of the people, body language, facial expressions. This very much differs from culture to culture. However, it is very important to know for the comfortable integration. We have also discussed the importance of language tandems and the possibility to create a framework for the universities so that this can be implemented university-wide, since these are quite good opportunities, not only to learn languages, but also for intercultural exchange between different students. The importance of cultural activities that are aimed at international exchange students, getting to know the culture of their city and the culture of their country better. It is often a problem that international students are grouped together, not being integrated into communities, not being, hanging out and interacting with the local students or other members of the local community, but usually sticking with other international students, and sometimes even same country nationals, especially when it comes to the countries that do send quite a lot of students on exchanges and study abroad programs. So activities such as visits to the cultural and natural heritage spots, city tours, museum visits, dance workshops, traditional dance workshops, food making workshops, and similar, that would help the students understand in the host city and the host country in which they are residing. Moving on more to the staff environment, we have discussed quite a lot that the lifelong learning of university staff is incredibly important. And with welcoming more and more students, universities also have a responsibility to train their staff to be able to facilitate intercultural dialogue in order to be able to teach and to build up intercultural classrooms. This is not only important for the teaching staff, but for the university staff in general. People who are dealing with administration and who are dealing with students on a daily basis outside of the classroom as well. We have also touched upon the discrimination that is quite often happening. So it is also quite important to train the staff to handle this discriminatory behavior, but also to have some sort of a set of rules that students could call themselves upon in order to have some ground to fall back onto once accusing someone of discrimination. So we have discussed quite a lot about the possibility to implement a code of conduct at the university that would, for this reason, protect the international and exchange students. Moving on to the community engagement, it is very important for the exchange students as well as international students to have an opportunity to volunteer and participate in activities that are facilitated by civil society organizations. So activities that are accessible to everyone in the local community. Of course, volunteering and participating is a very different thing, and civil society should be able to provide both to the international students inside of the city. This is especially important for activity-based student and youth-led associations, since they are the ones who are also gathering the local students in order for international and exchange students to have this peer-to-peer approach and to be able to actually get to know the local students inside of their new city. It is quite important that community engagement activities include both local students and international and exchange students in the same environment for the intercultural exchange and integration to happen. There also needs to be an easy way for them to access community engagement activities. So it would be good to have single entry central points such as the Erasmus Plus app, where these activities would be accessible to everyone. And we have also touched upon how a lot of strain is often put onto students as well as student and youth-led associations to actually facilitate these activities. So it would be good to have a funding mechanism for these associations who are then facilitating community engagement activities, so that they also do not have to then worry about getting funds to actually facilitate them and spend time on that, but actually focus more on the quality community engagement activities for the students. We have also touched upon the recognition of community engagement activities and the importance of creating a framework as well as a recognition mechanism for them, especially the ones that are conducted as extracurricular activities. The recognition could happen through diplomas, supplements, certificates, badges, or credits issued by the universities. Of course, it would be very good to have this sort of a framework on a European level. However, it is also completely fine. It is done from the university to university. But in order to ensure some sort of a seamless mobility, which European universities are trying to do, it would be good to have a European framework for something like that. We have also focused quite a lot on students developing competences during stages of their exchange or study abroad that are quite connected to non-formal education and not that much to formal education. So students developing development paths, what happens to a student once they come to a city, what happens in the middle of their exchange, what happens at the end of their exchange, what are the competences they develop, and what are the activities that we can associate to this in order to be able to assess and certify them. We have also referred to a tool such as the Erasmus Skills, which also produced self-assessment tool for the competences of international and exchange students to be able to assess themselves how their exchange has affected them before and after going to mobility. We have discussed quite a lot about the democratic participation and the ability of international students to form student representative bodies, not to speak through other people and not to speak through other bodies that exist inside of the university, but the ability for them to actually form student representative bodies, either as departments and committees in already existing bodies such as student unions, but where they would be independent and where they would be able to represent themselves independently, or to form student representative bodies by themselves that would be heard by the university, where they could speak for themselves and represent their own needs, as well as the opportunity for them to join and participate in current student bodies and associations, either in a volunteering capacity or in a leadership capacity. When it comes to housing, housing is quite a big problem for the international students and especially exchange students who are coming for a short-term mobility. It is hard to find trustworthy accommodation providers as well as those who are willing to maybe rent for only a short period of time. So we have focused quite a lot on increasing spots in dormitories for international students. And what's more important, not to divide them into a special corridor or in a special place in the dormitory where they would be again bunked with other international students, but the possibility to mix them with the local students and maybe even put them in the rooms with the local students. We have also discussed that it would be good to have a database with trustworthy accommodation providers in the city, or even have partnerships with some accommodation providers, such as, for example, UniPlaces. When it comes to health, it is quite important for if the university provides mental health services for them to be accessible to international students as well, and exchange students who often do not have enough time to learn the native language, as well as to have some sort of a database of mental health providers who are working with internationals that students could easily access. And finally, employment, which is quite important for international students who are sometimes not even coming on a scholarship and who would have to find a job in their new host community, the same way that they would do back home. So it is quite important for them to be able to access student jobs on and off campus. There's quite often a lot of bureaucracy and legality connected to this. So there should be jobs that are accessible to international and exchange students, and university can also play a crucial role in this, of them being able to apply as tutors, librarians, the desk staff at the dormitories, and similar positions that the university can actually control. That will be quite that from our side. I try to keep it concise. These are the students who were working with us on the topic. Thank you very much to the students. It was quite a pleasure to work with you through the previous period on creating these recommendations.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. We continue with the next forum, Forum 7.
Good morning. It's my turn now. So, yes, I'm sharing. Good morning, everyone. Our topic was about how can universities and cities work together in order to improve students' life. And in our team, we have Karin, Selena, Jenny, Varvara, Ermelinda, Anastasia, Alessandra, and Nelly. I know some of you are here, so I hope you approve this presentation because we didn't have much time to prepare it together. Our first step in order to tackle this problem was to find where are the major difficulties that students face when studying in a higher education level. The first barrier that I believe everyone faces is the economical one, the costs that come with studying at a higher education level, whether it's about the students' fees, housing, transportation, daily expenses, etc. Money, unfortunately, it's always the first barrier that we encounter. And then there are other variations of this problem and other different situations. Usually studying, exams, classes, the will to reach our goals to be a good student always comes with stress and depression and anxiety throughout the semester. And eventually this always has an impact on our mental health at different levels for different students. So this is always a topic that we know with COVID-19 pandemic it really exploded the cases of students in need of mental health aid. And then lastly, a little bit of a different topic is that studying, it's not all about classes and exams. Students want more than that when studying. It's for most of us the prime of our years, being young when you want to experience new things. So during our studies, we also want to have an active life, a different life, to take the opportunities we can to learn and grow. So what were the recommendations that we found to tackle these main problems? About the financial ones, we found that a lot of it could be solved with the concept of having a job in a way to gain salary to help with the economic difficulties. But it doesn't have to stay for like that. There are other opportunities like internships and volunteering opportunities that don't have to directly have a salary, obviously. But if you are an active member of the community, if you are contributing, whether it's for the university or for the city or both, you should have some kind of reward because you're contributing. So an indirect way to help the students would be to alleviate, for example, the fees or provide some sort of scholarship to help with the expenses. And this is always a synergy that has to work both ways. So employers who provide this kind of opportunities will also have some kind of reward in order to make a more diverse offer in the city and the university for students to take this opportunity. So cities and universities should work together in order to create this job center system to provide the opportunities for students who can apply and who need to apply. And then we have the mean that's most common, I believe, for every city, the concept of scholarships, loans, and other means that can be applied, or mechanisms to alleviate with some expenses like lending school material. But the origin of these scholarships often have very different, from the very different places, where are from the state, from the university, or even from private companies. And the process to apply to these opportunities, these scholarships, is always an information that's very, very spread throughout all over the place, honestly. It was a common problem we found for every city. And oftentimes the process is very, very intricate, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of documents that are necessary. So the recommendation we have here, besides providing this kind of funds to help financing the expenses that come with studying, also creating a platform where all this information and all of these opportunities will be condensed in the same place, so students can find the information immediately and can take this opportunity, because it's terrible, the concept of a student missing out an opportunity for lack of information, not being available, or the process being so complicated that an 18-year-old student not being able to apply for. Then the next problem we found around the financial difficulties was also the access to accommodation, not only because of the lack of it sometimes, but mostly because of the prices of the rents that are too high and difficult for a student and their families to be able to pay. So in order to come with fair prices and more ways of providing accommodation, we thought that universities and cities would work together in order to provide funds to the programs that host students with families. For example, this is very good for international students that have a more temporary stay, but also public residencies and landlords to provide ways to motivate them to allow rents that are fair for students. With, for example, again, tax reductions is always a good way to motivate them to do that. Then around mental health, we were happy to find that most universities have a way of providing a mental health service with the psychologists sometimes in their own campus. It was really good to find that. But these always have very limitations. Sometimes it's paid, sometimes you only have a chance to go there one time. So besides providing an accessible and affordable, and in the best case scenario will be to be free because therapy is not cheap to every student, but also making these capable of responding to the dimension of the university's needs. Because oftentimes you have one or two professionals for a body of thousands and thousands of students, and it's not possible to respond to the mental health needs of those students. But and again, mental health has always a big stigma around it. And it's a tough topic for some people, even grown-ups talk about, especially grown-ups sometimes. So universities and cities have the responsibility to take action in raising awareness within the students community in order to break the stigma of seeking for help, but also within the community overall, because we are a society and the mindset has to be linear with everyone about mental health not being so stigmatized like it is today, unfortunately. Then for the fun part, let's say like that, the leisure activities, we found that it should be a responsibility also from the city and university to find ways to provide interesting opportunities and different opportunities for their students while studying, because it's always also a way to alleviate the stress that comes with the semester, but also to provide the new experiences and make them more culturally developed and grow, finding new realities, because then they will be not only better professionals in the future after university, but also staying in the city, being better citizens from the experience they had the opportunity to take while studying. But how can universities and cities know all these problems, all these suggestions? How can this communication happen in order for them to take action, to listen to students? Students usually have representatives, students' unions, councils, etc. And it's a necessity and a responsibility of the cities and universities to actively go look for the students' opinions. There's always the target, yes, we want to hear you, but there's not an active action to listen to the students. And this doesn't have to be only through the representatives, with also periodic polls that are able to do at the end of each semester. It will be possible to periodically receive an opinion from the students with different and various topics, because believe students want to talk and speak about their needs. And then it will be possible to create these synergies between the university and the city to improve students' lives, and also to make the cities and universities more attractive for new students to apply for and go live there. Thank you, everyone. We hope, even though these suggestions are very general, we hope that in some way they can help universities to broaden their horizons and to try new techniques. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. Very interesting. We continue with the next forum, Forum 8.
Hello, everyone. I was the chair of Forum 8. My name is Kristel Jakobson, and I'm an executive committee member in the European Students' Union. And the topic for us was formal and informal learning, innovative pedagogical approaches prompted by the COVID-19 crisis. And first, before getting into the background and the recommendations, I would also express my sincere gratitude to the students who are also here presented in the slide, for being so active and really being able to give their input to the topic. And I think what we came up with is hopefully interesting and who knows, maybe even useful. So the three central terms that we focused on from this topic were hybrid learning, online learning tools, and mental well-being. They all come from the fact that our topic was very heavily influenced by COVID-19 crisis and the way it changed how the studies are organized and how we study nowadays as well.
Given from the fact that before COVID, the study mostly took place physically, and now all of a sudden we were forced online, it doesn't mean that everything should go back to the way it was before. So not everything should go back to physical studies, but instead hybrid learning was something that came up in our discussions quite a lot. And thus it became one of the central terms that we talked quite a bit about. And hybrid learning, as we understood it within our group, was something that happens simultaneously in the classroom and also outside of the classroom, but still in the formal learning lines. Within these lines. So the students can be attending the classes physically, but they can also take the same class at the same time from home or abroad or a cafe, if you will. So this hybrid learning really does, in at least from these discussions that we had, really a bigger influence on how the studies are organized and how these teaching outcomes are given to the students. From how they are organized, the second really central term became online learning tools. That was a topic also driven from the hybrid learning, as now we don't just have the classroom and the board and a chalk, but we also need to have something more. We need to adapt ourselves to all of these different online learning tools that there are really so many of, but if they are used properly, they can really they have at least the capability to ensure the quality or enhance the quality really of the online models and classes, or even the hybrid ones. So acknowledging that there exists a lot of online learning tools is really in the benefit and of the university or higher education in general and the students. And third term that comes from our title being COVID-19 is, of course, the much talked about before, also mental well-being, as this is something that is deemed just as important as physical health. And in our group discussions, a lot of emphasis was put on how sports actually does enhance your mental well-being as well. So in conclusion, everyone must take care of themselves, and just as you would take care of your physical health, is just as important to take care of your mental health, especially if you're studying and in a rather stressful environment or a situation as a student you often really are. So to the recommendations. Hybrid learning, as we talked about first, as the first term, the recommendation is that the higher education institution should guide the lecturer through it, providing necessary skills, training, and tools to offer a proper inclusive hybrid method of studying to the students. And this is directly aimed at the institutions for trying to not fall back to the physical environment altogether, but also leave a certain room for the studies to be carried out in a hybrid environment. And in the recommendation, we also provide further explanation as to which subjects or in which fields particularly could go this way, and which should definitely stay in a physical manner as well. As from the discussions, it became very clear that not everything can become hybrid and not everything should. But that is just to remind the institutions as well that there are certain topics and certain ways in which you can give the knowledge in a hybrid manner as well. The second one being online learning tools, the recommendation will be to increase awareness about the different options of tools and encourage universities to further train their staff with at least the basic skills of the most common or useful tools. And that is, again, I think, a collaboration which should be made between the institutions and the lecturers and professors to make sure that you find the right tools, because there's really so many out there, and it's really difficult for the students as well to attend every class with a different online learning tool. It's almost advised in this sense to take a more general approach, to pick one or have at least the outline of several ones that are used in the studies, and it will make easier for the students to carry out their studies. It won't mean that you have to learn a new tool every now and then, but as there are so many, I think from the discussion with the group, it became very apparent that the lecturers and professors and the students themselves as well find it really hard to find the right tool, even though it's out there. So that's where the competency of the university might come into play and help out with that a bit. The third one being mental well-being. The recommendation of the students of UNICA, they stress the importance of enhancing the mental health support system of the higher education institutions and stress the importance of psychological consultations and support. That is, of course, first and foremost directed at the institutions for emphasizing the importance of providing the mental health support, and the existence of the system is really important. And we understand that in a lot of the universities, it's already there. However, enhancing it is never a bad idea to make it even more accessible and even more high quality standard. So it's really important to pay attention to the support system that is provided by the institution. However, what was apparent from the discussion also was that the students actually do recognize that it's not up to the institution themselves. It's not just about having the system in place that is created by the institution then. It's also equally as important, if not even more important, for the students to acknowledge if there are any matters, any distress in themselves. They need to pay attention to their own mental well-being first and foremost. And in that sense, it's a really two-way street for the institution and the student themselves. Institution to provide the necessary tools and the student to pay attention about their own mental well-being and ask for help and ask for these systems to be put in place if they still are not, or enhance them if they already are. So with this two-way street, I think it's a proper message to say thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christelle. Very interesting. And now we proceed with the next forum, Forum 9.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Okay. So I'm Joanna, I'm a medical student, and my topic is topic 9, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary education. First of all, I would also like to thank my group and all the work they put into this. So let's start. First of all, and to give some context to our recommendations, there are some key points we need to understand. Recognizing that university culture is a very competitive one, and there's the need to shift this to a more team-based culture. So we need to stop valuing the individual success more than the success of the group. So collaboration is an essential part of our work in universities, and collaboration is needed to tackle the major issues we face today, whether we are talking about climate change, sustainability issues, or rising inequalities. And if universities want to keep up with our rapidly changing world, inter and transdisciplinary education are an essential tool to be adopted. They are an inclusive method in the sense that they rely on people from different areas, experts and academics, students and non-academics. And in that way, it can also lead to more open structures, and not only in terms of learning, but also of sharing knowledge. And it also facilitates communication, critical thinking, and the development of synthetic thoughts. Nevertheless, there are a lot of challenges to overcome in our society to be able to fully implement these changes, not only in terms of the cultural shift I've talked about, but also in terms of funding, in terms of curriculum. So that is where our recommendations focus, and where we think governments and universities can and must act. So our recommendation starts here with equity, guaranteeing and promoting equality in university from early on. We can do that by banning the excessive use of rankings between academia, and by normalizing courses and the idea that every area and every field is important in its own. and guarantee access to all the tools and the equipment needed for inter and transdisciplinary work. Then in terms of funding, dedicate funds to interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary work. We can do that by targeted grants, by premiums, and this can be done by reaching out not only to governments, but also to the private sector. And then offer positive motives to young people, whether that is means or financial support, for them to be able to join seminars on transdisciplinary and sustainable education. And the next thing we focused on was on the teaching and evaluation parts. So promote a preparatory phase for students to take part in before they start inter and transdisciplinary projects and courses. So we can make sure that everyone has the basic levels of knowledge needed, because they will be tackling different areas than their own. Promote quality control for basic levels of communication, cooperation, and soft skills development, guaranteeing that the work itself lives up to high standards. And then provide lifelong learning education to teachers, also to guarantee that they know how to teach in an adequate manner and they are updated with the more recent teaching methods. And ensure cooperation of different departments to offer elective courses with different perspectives on the same topic, so we can start introducing the interdisciplinary view of certain topics and problems. And then in terms of curriculum, develop more elective interdisciplinary courses with predefined themes to help students from any field to have a more in-depth understanding of the problems. And these courses must be impactful, must be relevant, must touch important problems, and they can also involve non-academics to build and share common knowledge. And then develop and promote transversal and elective curriculum that allows students to explore their non-formal education and develop their soft skills, whether that is communication, team-based work. And there are a lot of things we can work on. Then in terms of what university can promote in terms of activities and collaborative work, we also recommend the creation and promotion of debate groups and think tanks between students from different fields, also involving academics and non-academics. These groups must be challenged also with problem solving, and they must be prompted to collaborate with each other, solve different problems and reach new knowledge and new solutions. Then raise awareness and visibility to put inter and transdisciplinary work in the public agenda and frame the problems we'll be working on according to the logic of the public cycle, not only to ensure an efficient contribution, but also to make sure we are touching urgent topics. And this should be a gradual process in the sense that we could start with small webinars and then evolve to conferences and symposiums where we can involve different experts and students and explore different inter and transdisciplinary projects. Also promote a stakeholders approach with an impact assessment as a way to reach more non-academics so they can be involved and they can be a viable part of the transdisciplinary work we aim to do. And then the last topic we approached was research. In terms of research, we recommend also the promotion of inter and transdisciplinary research projects that involve researchers, teachers from different backgrounds, including non-academics. And this means also give PhD students topics to work on and give them relevant opportunities. Promote collaborations with different universities, different sectors, including the private sector, as a way to also raise the needed resources. And then build and coordinate a network for inter and transdisciplinary research projects and dedicate a working group to mentor new initiatives. And this working group should also include experts on inter and transdisciplinary education, students who are already working on this, and eventually open the working group to the entire university community.
And finally, our last recommendation is to dedicate a task force with inter and transdisciplinary experts to explore the showcase projects and analyze determining success factors. With that, we can define the best practices and define guidelines and recommendations for these types of projects. And also disseminate this through reports, through conferences, and boost the outreach inter and transdisciplinary work can have. So this is a summary of everything our group discussed during this conference. These are the main points we think should be the focus. And I hope you liked it, and I hope you see these recommendations with the importance we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanna. Very interesting. And now, last but not least, we conclude with the Forum 10, please.
Well, good morning. I'll be sharing my screen. So, as Professor Luciano said, welcome to the last but not least of our fora. This will be about jobs in the digital society, the role of universities. I think there are many ways one can define what a university is. It can be a place of learning, of self-discovery, but I believe, like Juan has said before me, that universities are a place where you hope to climb the ladder, meaning acquire the skills, the knowledge you need to be successful in your own professional endeavors and in a way to fulfill your own personal ambitions. And in that regard, universities have a somewhat difficult task because they have to constantly update and reinvent themselves to offer students something that is meaningful for them and of value to society. And this has become a bit difficult with technological innovation, and especially now expedited by COVID, universities have a more difficult task and a shorter time frame to implement those changes. And in that regard, we have convened here with our fora, and we have been discussing what we believe would be interesting ideas to bring about the change that we want to see in universities. In that regard, we have come about with a four-point proposal, not entirely universal, but I think every university in Europe can maybe adapt some of these ideas to their own reality and hopefully improve the experience for the students. So the first point we have is to update course content and reimagine current methodology. This will further divide itself into 4 different points. One is to have a forward-looking material and data. While I was studying, I would often come across, for instance, in finance with examples using stocks that have been, the companies have been defunct for over 10 years. So I think it would be beneficial to update said content. The other would be to experiment with different learning and teaching methodologies, like the flipped classroom, in which you have, the natural flow would be to have a class with lectures where you learn the topics and at home you practice. The idea would be to combine this with some sort of blended format in which you learn at home, let's say with modules, and when you come to class, you can work on projects with your own colleagues and professors, and you develop your own public speaking and storytelling. The next point would be to promote debate and cultural awareness. This could be done with a vast array of different ideas. One of them would be, of course, to participate or host events like this, UNICA Student Conference. And finally, to have a promotion in terms of digital and soft skills. This ties up to the previous 2 points, but also to a course offer in that regard, or to have common modules or curricula that would be available to every student, no matter their specific field of studies. This could be regarding public speaking, time management, how to use the Microsoft Office tools, something like this, and also tying up to micro-credential systems, which also are a good idea for lifelong learning projects. Right now, the European Commission has had until last week a public consultation on the subject, so we are likely to hear about this later on this year or the next one. The second proposal would be a capacitation program for faculty. What I mean by this is that just like us, faculty also need to be more proficient with digital tools and to develop new interpersonal skills. I believe this is something that we have all felt over the last year. We have to switch from a fully physical format to a fully remote one, and this requires a new set of skills. And tying up to this aspect, I believe that universities in general, and this is something that we have all agreed, have too much of a focus, as has been discussed in other forums, on rankings and especially on research, which is a big enabler of funding and prestige and rankings. And we believe they should also prioritize the learning experience of the students a little bit more than already is, and to create more incentives for faculty to not only be excellent researchers, but also to have the time, the tools, and the incentives to also continuously improve the learning experience for the student. Thirdly, we have the possibility of allowing students more freedom in their own choices, especially when it comes to time management. This can be accomplished by, fully remote or blended learning. This, of course, does not work for every single field, but we have tested now with COVID, and we believe it can really work. It allows students to have a job, to learn, to acquire experience, and also to the equity side of that, to earn money and to be able to fund their studies. And in that regard, we think that universities, and this is something that NOVA already does, can offer more student jobs. This can help them integrate in the job market and have good experience and also make some money, but also to be more receptive to the working student status. And lastly, but certainly not least, probably the main focus of this forum is to foster student integration in the job market. And there are several ideas. One, of course, is counseling and career advice. Universities can and often do have dedicated HR personnel that help students with drafting motivation letters tailored to a particular position, how to answer interviews, how to plan their careers, how to get some advice from someone more experienced than them. There's also partnerships that can be established between universities and the private sector, for instance, to fund new campuses, like NOVA SB, for instance, has done, to promote case studies, company visits, and also to have joint educational programs with a company, for instance, that is a major leader in consulting or banking with the universities, or also to offer programs like internships and traineeships. In that regard, I believe that universities should all have an online platform that connects students to partner universities, corporate sponsors, and other organizations, since they are already predisposed to be interested in the students of those universities. So by connecting them, this will ease their integration in the job market. So, and that would be all on my part. Thank you all for joining. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Bruno. Very useful also this final presentation. So also many thanks to the chairs for keeping the time. We are perfectly on time. This is important because of course it was a challenge to have 10 presentation, but again, it was very important to listen to you. Again, many thanks to all the chairs of this conference. And I want to thank again NOVA de Lisboa, the university hosting digitally this event today, and in particular the Vice Rector João Amaro de Matos and Gonzalo Moraes da Mota, the International Networks and NOVA Community Coordinator. Also, I want to remember that some of the chairs were from NOVA, but others were from ESU, the European Student Union, and from ESN, the Erasmus Student Network, and also from the International Young and Age of Friends. So it really was a pleasure to cooperate with these organizations. With ESU and the ESN, we have a long tradition of cooperation. We started more than 10 years ago to do events together, and especially the student conference, I think, is really something that UNICA really loves to do together with these student organizations. Also, I want to thank very much the contact persons and the academic tutors at the universities of UNICA, which participated in the conference. I know it was a lot of work for you to identify the students, nominate them, and to follow their work in the last few months. And I really want to acknowledge your efforts. So now, without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to Professor João Amaro de Matos for a very short feedback. We have overall half an hour, so we would like to listen also to the coordinators of the UNICA working groups, and then hopefully we will try to open the floor also for some more general discussion. If colleagues online have questions or comments, etc., please put them in the chat. We will try to use this half an hour in the best way. So please, João, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Luciano, and well, thank you all. Thank you all. Not only the chairs who actually exposed the main ideas of the groups, but all the students involved in the discussions and in the ideas that came up to life in these presentations. So overall, I mean, I would be crazy if I would comment, one by one of the panels, but I'll make some general comments and some very specific ones that I would like to share with you. First of all, congratulations. I think that universities are typically places where this kind of topics must be discussed from all different perspectives. I don't have a perfect definition of universities, but if I would try to synthesize, universities are institutions or places where old, supposedly wise, relatively wise people meet young, very motivated transformators of society that will become eventually, later on, older and wiser. And so there is a dynamic in the interaction between the individuals at universities that allow to discuss the current state and the future of society. And it's an ideal place to do that. So the 10 topics that were presented today were actually, I think, nicely chosen because they present a lot of overlap. And while this overlap is there in your presentations, it somehow corroborate or validate different evaluations and different analyses from various people. So that's quite interesting to, from the perspective of listening to different people, understand where the intersection is and where the real concerns should be stressed. So I listen a lot about, let me identify a few topics. Multi-transdisciplinarity. Okay, so this thing came across a lot of the presentations, the idea that concepts are not in small closed boxes, but should be shared in a more conceptual and more comprehensive way, because nowadays nothing is closed. And the areas of knowledge are quite open and quite interactive. heard a lot about sustainability and variations of sustainability that go from, from inclusion, diversity, environment concerns, and many various other ways of sustainability. And I heard a lot about mental well-being. Okay, so these are the main topics that it goes from science in the city to job in the digital world. I mean, all these things come together and boil down to a number of things. But I think that the underlying topic that no one really touched, but it is underlying everything that is said here, are two main points that I would love you to reflect a bit more about it. It's financing universities, how to do that in a wise, smart way that is sustainable in our society, that sustainability comes back again, and governance. Most of our universities are public universities that are, financed somehow through their mission by the state budget or local budget or whatever kind of budget it is. So when people say, and I quote here, inject more budget into, or finance more, or subsidize more, when you talk about these things, you are actually talking about public policies. You are actually bringing in policymakers to the definition of what the role of universities are. And I think that nowadays in modern society, there are complementary ways to think about this. I would have loved to see a more entrepreneurial, a more proactive perspective from the students. It's interesting to provide ideas, to provide suggestions, to provide agendas, and to say, put more money here, finance this, subsidize that. But there is a role, especially in a young generation, like the one that you represent, to take a more proactive role in the way, universities interact with its main stakeholders, which are society at large. I mean, we are UNICA, a network of capital city universities. We are close to the political power, to municipalities, but we are close as well to the main organizations that interact and that play a role in our society. I'm not talking only about corporations and companies. I'm talking about organizations, NGOs. I'm talking about a kind of work that we as institutions of higher education should be much more proactive in order to establish a true way, an intelligent way of learning and developing on the financing model of the higher education institutions. I'm not just talking about science. I'm not just talking about technology. I'm not just talking about the digital transformation. I'm talking about a wider concept on how to bring in the stakeholders to a more proactive role in society, working with us, for us, and for our joint future. So I think that, congratulations to all of you. I am particularly sensitive to a number of topics that were, from educating educators, which is, I think, one of the basic things that we have. Bruno just pointed that out in the last topic, but it is one of the main things that where we have to use technology, and therefore different sorts of science approach to the learning and the educational system, but to, integrating cultural diversity. And that is such a broad topic, because you don't discuss integrating foreign students in university that are just coming across Europe and compare that with people that come from Bangladesh in a very different cultural, social environment, and come to, there is a variety, there is a diversity, complexity of issues in tackling these problems that I feel very, very grateful to all your effort and insight in addressing so many of these issues. Certainly food for thought, and I'm very much looking forward to the written final version of your document, and to work with you, with authorities, and with our main stakeholders to implement or try to implement a few of these very exciting ideas. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Joao, for this very interesting, very useful feedback. Now I would like to proceed with Minna Kutaniemi, who is the coordinator of the International Relations Officer Group.
Yeah, hello everyone. Nice to be here and see you all participating. I'm representative of the IRO group, that means International Relations Officers Group, and I have been really happy to listening to your summaries and presentations. As you know, the students are in the center of our activities, and there is no job for us if you are not present and active and among our services. I picked up some of the themes and topics that are relevant for our group, and I noticed that we share the same passion and activity to these themes. First of all, the inclusion is very important for us, and for the new Erasmus program, that is also emphasized in many ways. So I was really happy that we share this value, that we should put more effort to include all students in all situations and from different backgrounds for the same activities. Sustainability is one of the key actions and key topics at the moment, and especially in mobilities, and especially in short mobilities, that has been a discussion that should we support this kind of activities from the point of view of the sustainability, and we have created and started discussing how to prevent the bad effects, but still promote the internationalization for all students also in short mobilities. Of course, the recovery of the pandemic crisis is one main discussion that we have at the moment, because the number of international students and exchange students have rapidly decreased during the last years. And of course, we hope that the next academic year will bring some hope to that. The communication and also the digital tools have been mentioned many times, and I think that's the key factor what comes to the planning of the future. And also, I was really pleased to hear that you also think that one of the future skills is the intercultural competencies, because I have noticed that during the last 5 years, almost all universities have taken it into their agenda that they want to offer these skills and courses of these skills to students and staff. I was also happy to hear about your thoughts about interdisciplinary and study options that combine different scientific fields and study programs, and that the universities are actually creating new study programs which are multidisciplinary. And I think that's the future that we all support and we wish to see in next 10 years. So what comes to our group, I will guarantee to you that we will be putting effort to share these values and share these ideas that we have bring up today, and we will also focus on these topics that I especially mentioned. So it was really happy to hear that we have this common understanding of the situation at the moment, and what there is to wish for and hope for and wait for in the future. Thank you.
Perfect. Many thanks, Minna. We continue with Romita Yuku, the coordinator of the UNICA EduLab working group.
Thank you very much, Luciano. It's a great pleasure for me to share this valuable time with our students. And EduLab, it's a component of UNICA, a group of reflection and action in innovative pedagogies, in the curriculum design in academia, and structuring teaching or learning, being oriented to the students' needs. That's so important to hear the students' voice and to keep the connection with students' wishes, actions, and what not with all initiatives which are coming from their side. I have been impressed by three main important transformative way for enriching the teaching and learning in academia in this moment. One of them is linked to the important expectations for having flexible learning pathways for our students. They are understanding well the process of creating some flexible line of constructions in our curricula, creating some small modules using micro-credentials. It was impressive that our students have been in contact with this important strategical perspective on designing new ways of curriculum. And it's very important to understand the connection between these modules with some other coming from the lifelong learning side, because the second important orientation in your positions, dear students, have been the idea of creating bridges between formal curricula and what is expected to be developed in the lifelong learning area, with some other points which are coming from the employment side. And sometimes it's very important to collect information from this final stage of entering in the real life, and we need to readjust the quality assurance processes in this context. And teaching and learning should be effective. And this is why we're starting to reflect on I rely very much on behalf of EduLab to do it together with you, the ways, exploring the ways for designing new forms of curriculum. We are using modularization, we are using micro-credentials, and sometimes your feedback will be very important for the next step in this area. The third, but not the least important topic, which I'm just try to collect from your intervention, was linked with the well-being in the academia. It's so important, dear students, for us as experts in this field. It's important to create sometimes environment for teaching and learning. If the teaching and learning will be suitable with the expectations, sometimes linked with the needs of the students. But if we are not building the environment which creating trust, sometimes well-being, as you are just using this word, we should be ready to create sometimes professional development modules for our professor, for the staff, in order to provide this kind of environment for all students involved in teaching and learning in academia. Probably I'm just selected a few lines of the very rich used by your ideas and thoughts and inspiration for giving us an important picture and overview about what we are going or showing to do in the near future. I'm very grateful to you, and I'm just giving you an important assurance that EduLab will act in the benefits of our students, looking forward to what is important from the strategical perspective of teaching and learning for the students' well-being in the European UNICA environment. Thank you very much, Luciano. Thank you very much to our students for such a beautiful and ritual context for discussion.
Thank you very much, Romita. We continue with Matthew Lawson, coordinator of the UNICA Green and SDGs group.
Many thanks, Luciano. And first of all, many thanks to you all for your efforts with this programme, and to the staff involved for making sure this is delivered in such a good manner. I was really struck across all the presentations. I think they all highlighted, and it's a reminder to all of us, that universities are cornerstones of our local and global communities, and they play a key role in delivering positive, transformative change in our societies. And students play a key role in driving that change as well. The working group I'm involved in looks at the Sustainable Development Goals and environmental green issues and how universities try to embed that across everything we do. And I was very taken aback by a number of the presentations. You know, you struck on issues such as sustainability in the curriculum. We know this is an important issue for students, and we know that you want that not just in your kind of formal curriculum, but also in the wider student experience as well. But also, you know, how universities work with their kind of neighbours, their local communities, on a range of projects to positively address the Sustainable Development Goals, working in partnership, working together out with the campus location. So, you know, fantastic recommendations. From our group, we'll very much look into the detail of those recommendations and see how we can progress those in our own institutions. But I would encourage you after today to engage with your own universities, engage with your student representatives, engage with staff and senior management, because that is what is required to drive the change. They need to know what you want universities to do, because universities quite often respond to student demands, needs, and of course they want to do what's important to students. So I would encourage you after today to go away, have those conversations, and think through maybe some of the challenges, and maybe think through some of the opportunities in your own context and how you can deliver those recommendations. Going forward, if you want to get in contact with our working group, or indeed myself, to discuss more about your recommendations, very happy to. But in the meantime, thank you very much, and I'll pass back to Luciano.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for your feedback. Now it is a pleasure to leave the floor to Raul Aguilera, a coordinator of the UNICA Scholarly Communication Group.
Hi, thank you, Luciano, and thank you all. I feel really enthusiastic about your recommendations and your work. I think we need to listen more to the students and the universities in general, and to make you more participants in our activities and our initiatives. The Scholarly Communication Group working group is a group based mainly in libraries. And libraries, of course, are no longer just study rooms or large stores for collections, for printed books or printed journals. Rather, on the contrary, we have become cross-cutting services, and we have a transversal approach to many things that are happening at the universities. And I see this transversal approach also in your recommendations, because from a variety of perspectives, from 10 different perspectives, you sometimes address similar concerns. And well, from our side, we are a scholarly communication group, as I mentioned. So our main focus is research, open access research, and this is key to open access and open science, and also to the participation of the community in building knowledge. And this is essential in the upcoming years. Open access in research is a very key and crucial point right now. We are now dealing with publishers in what we call transformative agreements. So we are not going to stop paying to the publishers, because we will be still paying to the publishers, but we will stop paying for just reading, so that only we can read, to pay for publishing. Universities will make this switch. And this will be very important, because once you pay for publishing, everybody can read what universities are researching. And this is very important in terms of raising the awareness of the science in the universities. And this way, not only a researcher can read an article, but also a citizen outside the university will be able to read this article. But this will need large investments from the universities. So this is also very important for you, for the students, to be aware of, because even if the information, if the research information is available for free, this doesn't mean that it's for free for the universities, okay? Not only open access in research, but also open access in education. It's critical, not only for you as students, to access resources that have been prepared by other educators, by other instructors, but also for your teachers to access contents that other people have made and they can reuse because they are allowed by the licenses. Libraries can play a key role in helping instructors to access these resources and to share these resources with the students. And this is also a way to enhance sustainability in the learning materials ecosystem. And this is very important in a hybrid environment where printed books, printed textbooks are still important in some subject areas, but these are not the only way to access learning materials. And for those students with less income or with more difficulties to access very expensive materials, these open access educational resources are also key. And many of you have talked about how to make students more self-conscious or more mature, more autonomous, and also libraries can play a significant role in information skills. You also think, I think about of soft skills in terms of communication skills, teamwork, and something like that, but also libraries can help you enhance your skills in searching for information, for relevant information. And this link to the open access of high quality research is also a way to avoid misinformation and fake news. And I think this is something that can be also important for all of you and for the universities. And finally, there's something that I haven't heard of in your interventions, and this is something that João de Matos mentioned earlier about the entrepreneurial approach of universities. And also libraries can play some part in that. Many libraries, or if not the libraries, other cross-cutting services in the universities are integrating maker spaces or fab labs that are not also only linked to allowing students in engineering or business or other studies to create their devices, their artifacts, or their projects, but also they can be linked to the real life and the work you are going to do in the companies or in the corporations or in the real world outside the university once you end your studies. So I will thank again for your efforts and for your recommendations, and I think we can take note of many of your recommendations in our working group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raul. Unfortunately, I think that Ophelie Buffa is not with us anymore. I know that she had to leave. So she is the coordinator of another important working group of UNICA, the PR and Communication. So in that case, if she's not there, I would like to leave the floor to Katarzyna Zofia Boinar, coordinator of the UNICA and the City Working Group.
Yes, hello. I just familiarized myself. I had some technical problems with participation, so I wasn't really present on this conference from the beginning. But I just had a quick scan of all the presentations, especially those ones considering the science in the city. And I'm really glad that the student perspective is so similar to our perspective. We have very similar points, especially considering the post-COVID reality and the whole COVID-related experience. We noticed the importance of citizen science as once a new mission or a very important mission of the university, but also as a qualitative change in our society, a more emancipated, engaged and well-informed citizen, and the bottom-up movement that the university can both feed in terms of knowledge, experience, methodology, terminology, but also in terms of kind of giving away the monopoly of doing science. So I think it's challenging both for the academic community, for the researchers, also for the management of the university. But I think it's a bigger mission. There's a bigger kind of challenge at stake of building a true democratic and evidence-based civic society. So we are really glad that this topic is on the agenda. Our group has been already involved in the topic. We've done a webinar on that, and I can see that there is a need to further kind of deepen this notion, and I'm sure we will continue that. And thank you for your work. Thank you for your brainstorming. Thank you for all of your reflections, because they actually help us set the agenda in this field. Another important notion that I also noticed is the actual university as a part of the city, both as a kind of important infrastructural developer and a social and urban actor that is creating a new space. We all know that a lot of tech companies are using the notion of a campus as a new office model, as a new way of organizing intellectual, knowledge-based work, technology-based work. So I think it's also challenging for the university to kind of reinvent the campus and to kind of see what's its impact both on the economic environment, because we often get evaluated according to these efficiency criteria. How many workplaces does the third mission or knowledge transfer, technology transfer of the university generate? How well is the entrepreneurship developing around the university campuses? How much does the triple or quadruple helix model contribute to the urban and metropolitan economy? But we also need to keep in mind all the social and let's say maybe less tangible aspects that you have all pointed out. And I'm really glad, because it also helps us conceptualize what the new campus is all about. How should the university as developer build sustainable spaces that allow citizens, allow different types of actors, visitors inside the campus? And how do we expose ourselves as academics? Also, how do we expose students to the kind of real life? And how do we find all of these in-between spaces create a new society, sort of create a new urban environment? I think it's all very inspirational. We just had a kind of brainstorming about the upcoming agenda, and I think all of your ideas actually kind of expand on our own intuitions, what is important, what's going on at the moment, and what should be continued and reflected upon. So from our side, I would like to assure that we will take your ideas further, and we will try to make them materialize and kind of morph into more relatable and tangible outcomes. So thank you very much for your work, and I'm really impressed and inspired at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katarzyna. Very good feedback. So now we need to almost to close. Just a few words also from me. Really, again, I was impressed by the contents of the presentations. I really want to congratulate all the chairs and also all the students who worked very closely with the chairs, for many months. As I mentioned before, today we saw the fruit of a work actually which was done for quite a long time. Actually, this conference, as also João Amaro mentioned, was planned in 2020. So really, we really saw the impact of COVID-19 on universities also through this conference. And of course, so we know that this has been a tragic period for many people, a very difficult period for all of us to go through all these pandemics. But I think in the new normal, as it was said, by some of the chairs, we will actually obtain some advantages in some aspects. This push towards the digitalization can have some advantages. One of them, for instance, is inclusion. I mean, the physical mobility, of course, we want to go back to physical mobility, but we have to remember that the number of students moving physically in Europe was a small percentage of the students attending higher education institutions. Using hybrid models, if we use them well with the high quality models, I think we can actually be more inclusive and offer these opportunities to almost to everyone. And this is something, again, very important, because this was one of the criticisms to our beloved Erasmus program. Also, some of the chairs also mentioned the aspects related to innovative pedagogies. Of course, we have been debating this, for instance, in the EduLab for many years, but some of the models were not fully implemented in all universities. Now, again, it's easier to propose the flipped classroom model to students because they're used to work now online and to actually learn online maybe before even meeting the professor and the other colleagues, and then to start a discussion with them. Digitalization and open access, as Raul mentioned, this is something already that's very close to the heart of UNICA. We've been debating this for many years. We supported the Plan S for open access. But again, this full digitalization that we're facing today can be an advantage because more people, I think, realized during the pandemic how difficult it was to access an article or a publication which was not open access. So people were at home; they did not have access to the campuses for some months in many countries, and they realized that they could not attend, let's say, in the humanities libraries, which did not have a full digitalized content. And now we understand that this is really a very important aspect. So I don't want to talk too much at this point, but there were really many aspects that impressed me during this morning, thanks to the excellent presentations we listened to. And one element which did not emerge, and I think is interesting that it did not emerge, is the European University Initiative, because of course I think the students did not fully saw yet, this is our fault of course, the impact of the European University Initiative. As you know, the European Commission launched already 2 calls, creating 41 alliances in Europe, and many of them actually have at least one UNICA member. UNICA is really very active in this initiative, having more than 30 UNICA members very active there. And these alliances are actually doing a lot of work in this direction in terms of innovative pedagogies, virtual mobility, new approaches to learning and teaching. So I think also through the European University initiatives, some of the recommendations that our students presented today could be implemented. So this, I think, is a good news in this, again, very difficult period. That's the impact of COVID-19 and the parallel, because actually they were independent, these 2 phenomena. I mean, the European University Initiative was launched before actually COVID, but then these 2 aspects together, I think they can play a very synergic role in improving higher education in Europe. So I think this tragic 2020 will be remembered also for higher education in the future as an important moment of transformation of higher education. So I will stop here. Unfortunately, the time is up. Again, many thanks to all the students, and also again to the counterpersons and the academic tutors, because there was a lot of work also from the universities working very hard together with the UNICA Secretariat, with Laura Colò and Alexandra Duarte. So now it's a pleasure to give the floor to Professor Manfredi Merluzzi from University of Roma 3, who actually will continue in a way the presentation by Rector Pietromarchi, telling us more about the UNICA Student Conference 2023, and in particular the symbolic role of the island of Ventotene, where this student conference will take place in 2020. Please, Manfredi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Luciano. I'm very pleased to be here in this UNICA Student Conference. This was my first UNICA Student Conference, despite Roma 3 already cooperate with Sapienza in other student conference. And I really, really appreciate the quality, the level, and the work that stay behind all of these interventions. The proposal we are presenting, and I'm very honored to be here with you to propose, is I share the screen. Okay. Is to hold a new 2023 conference in Ventotene. Ventotene is a very important place in a symbolic universe, that is the universe of Europe. And is a very important place because it's where, has been written in 1941, the Ventotene Manifesto, that was published in 1943 for first time. So I will explain you something about it. If you can see my screen, you can see?
Sorry, Manfred. Yeah, now in full screen. Perfect.
Okay, full screen. So Ventotene is a small island, and in this picture you can see the island going to Ventotene, that is between Santo Stefano and Ischia. Is not far from Rome, southern from Rome, in the Tyrrhenian Sea, in a group of islands very famous for touristical matter, because there is a very nice seaside and so on. But the real matter that we would consider for this candidature is that Ventotene has been, since the antiquity, since the Roman time, a place in which there were confinement or political confinement, and so it's very tied on the history of the power of Europe. It began there, being confined the daughter of the Emperor Augusto, Julia, that has been confined by the father in a very nice and visitable villa, but completely put away from the politics in Rome. In the island you saw in the second picture, Santo Stefano, it was built an incredible ergastolo that was a panopticon Bentham castle, in which during the Bourbon period there were put political and criminals to stay there for all their life. And this is very important because now Europe is considering to restore it and to put it as a monument of the history of the political opposition and history of the detention. But the most important aspect is the third aspect, so that the island of Ventotene, you see in the lower picture, was a place of confinement during the fascism, during the late years of the fascism, since 1939 to the 1943. In this confinement, there were many people, including the former president of the Repubblica Italiana, Sandro Pertini, but many others that were very important for European history, especially Altiero Spinelli, Eugenio Colorni, Ernesto Rossi. That were three detainees, three jail members that during their confinement wrote on the paper of cigarettes, so in a way more adventurous and not obviously permitted by the fascists, a new political manifesto for Europe. And this was considered a very important act for the building of the idea of Europe in this 19th century. The title was For a Free and United Europe, a draft manifesto. It was incredible that during the 1941 age in which the Nazi troops and the fascist troops are all around Europe in a still victorious attitude, there were men that are planning a future of peace, a future of cooperation, a future of shared values that are the values that now Europe is sharing. So it's very, very important, the manifesto, the values and the idea of step on the nationalism and be aware of what does it matter to be European and to build a common future together. Is a part of the matter of what you say in the conference today, in still aware, in build a future, in the role of university. So we thought that it could be a very symbolic place, and it could be a very good idea for us to stay there in the next UNICA conference and to elaborate a new manifesto in 2023, that was the anniversary in the publication of this first manifesto, in which the new students can write, express, elaborate what are the new issues for university and students inside the UNICA conference for our future. I also remember that in 2022, there will be held the conference for the future of Europe. So it's the time in which you are called as citizens and students to let your impression, let your marks, let your commitments for the future of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manfredi, for this presentation. Indeed, it is a very symbolic place for the European Union, so it really will be very relevant for UNICA to organize this event there. And of course, it is also a beautiful island, so I think we will try to compensate the lack of physical interaction that's actually, unfortunately, due to COVID, it happened this year. You know, having really students to be present there with a usual rule of 10 students per countries. So at the moment, UNICA has 37 countries. So we have UNICA members in 37 countries. And so at that time, we will expect probably more than 300 students together with the academic tutors to gather in Ventotene. And this initiative, as you know, now is led by University of Roma 3. Would be a great pleasure for UNICA, for the UNICA Secretariat to support, Roma 3 in this initiative. So we need to proceed now. I also encourage you to read the comments in the chat. There were very interesting comments. Many thanks to the ones who wrote them. And now we proceed with the following step. I leave the floor now to Alexandra Duarte, Laura Colò, and Gonzalo Damota for the step of the photo competition.
Okay, so I say goodbye to everybody. Thank you very much. I see you in Ventotene, I wish.
Yes, thank you, Manfredi. Thank you.
Ciao.
So hopefully we see my screen. Actually, we organized this photo competition for the students titled "The Capital City Through Your Eyes." We received 12 photos, but a lot of votes, and the photos with the highest number of likes on Facebook won the competition. So at the third position, we have Marim Joka from the University of Tirana, an October afternoon. I don't know, Marim, if you want to describe your photo, if you're there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for organizing this this conference and this session with the photo competition. I wanted to say that this is a photo captured in one of main streets of Tirana, and it describes a lot how people live the city, enjoying the past and enjoying a good book and following the river and waiting what future represents to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. You won this book, the Sustainable Travel Handbook. We'll then contact to send it by post. So wait for our contact on this.
So the second photo one is On the Edge of Freedom from Roman David Udler, University of Vilnius. He's not here, unfortunately, due to an internship, but maybe one of his colleagues wants to describe the photo for him. Okay, no problem then. And the first is The Divided City from Elina Katab of the University of Cyprus. And she won this Polaroid. Elina, are you there?
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the great conference. Nicosia is the capital city of Cyprus. You can see in the photo Eleftheria Square, which is in the center of Nicosia. And I would like to say that everyone is welcome to come to visit Cyprus and our beautiful city, and of course, University of Cyprus. Thank you very much for the conference.
Thank you. We'll contact you, Elena, to send your prize as well. And thank you to all the others that participated. It was really nice to see the city, your city, and to read the rationale behind each of them. Now we actually wanted to do a group picture on Zoom, and I mean, it's a print, of course, within the possibility. We would like you to ask to put one of the backgrounds. I am sending you the place where you can access, so that we can take a picture. I recommend the University superhero one, since you all are superheroes who endured the online conference. Yeah, and of course, you have to turn your camera on for this. Okay. Let's wait. I see people turning on their cameras. Okay, I will do the first one. Thank you so much for taking part in this. Doing the second one. And third one. And finally, the last page. Okay, thank you so much.
Perfect, thank you very much to all. So now I understand, Alexandra, we have a concert before closing.
Yes, yes, we do. I'm gonna share my screen. And this is a concert. It's we're gonna have a song by a band that actually won a contest that NOVA organizes, the NOVA band competition. And this is a song that they recorded just for us today.
Never thought the night would fall so quickly. Never thought I'd really need hear all the sounds that echo through me. So chance to breathe. The sadness hid behind your careless smile. Your heavy heart you kept concealed. Your words sustained the weight you always lifted, and eased the wounds that never healed. Black days, long nights, I can't bear to kill the lights, 'cause I know I might find things I wanna leave behind. I saw it in your eyes, you faded away. You had this dream almost every night. You climbed your mountain, you touched the sky. You came back down and you lost your way. The dreams you had, you threw them all away. God's died with me today. Took him with me down the drain. I figured it was them who made the noises in the back of my brain. Black days, long nights, I can't bear to kill the lights, 'cause I know I might find things I wanna leave behind. I saw it in your eyes, you faded away. You had this dream almost every night. You climbed your mountain, you touched the sky. You came back down and you lost your way. The dreams you had, you threw them all away. Had this dream almost every night. You climbed your mountain, you touched the sky. You came back down and you lost your way. The dreams you had, you threw them all away. You had this dream almost every night. You climbed your mountain, you touched the sky. You came back down, you lost your way. The dreams you had, you threw them all away.
So congratulations, this excellent concert. Maybe Alexander, we can put in the chat information about this band, because somebody was asking the names. I guess they are also students of NOVA.
Yes, this
they
is
are.
from
Yeah, please, Alexander.
This is from an annual band competition that NOVA does. And they usually then play at the festival that they also organize every year. I guess with COVID, no, but hopefully the festival will be back. And yeah, it includes students from NOVA. The song is called Green Leather. Yeah, we'll leave you here the details if you want to then search.
Yeah, let's put them in the chat so people can know. Congratulations, really beautiful, beautiful concert. So before closing, I would like to leave the floor again to Professor João Amaro de Matos for a few words, and then I will close.
Well, thanks, Luciano, but I have only to thank everybody, really, and to tell you how proud NOVA University is of actually sharing the responsibility of organizing this. We've been working together for the last 1.5 years because, you know, it was supposed to be offered last year. But I think that the result talks for itself. You know, I think it's top level, very interesting discussion. I think that the contributions have been quite interesting across the board. And we can only be proud and looking really forward to meet again the students, possibly other students, 2 years from now in Rome. Any excuse to go back to Italy will be a good excuse, and with all of you, of course. So thank you very much once again, and I hope that we can work together to transform universities in the coming years. All transformations take time. Just a new campus that Bruno is so proud about. It took us 12 years, and I was directly involved with that, to actually get to the transformation to show up what we have nowadays. So this is a long run project, and I hope that many of you will still be involved with us as faculty, researchers, or whatever, when we will be implementing so many of these changes that you suggest. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, João. I will also be very brief, just to thank again all the students, all the chairs, the contact persons, the academic tutors at universities. A very warm thank you to Gonzalo Damota and the team at NOVA. I know they really worked so hard for this conference together with the UNICA Secretariat, Alexandra Duarte and Laura Colò, and also the other members of the office. And again, thank you to all of you for participating today. I think it was a great event, despite all the difficulties. I think it was, high quality. And again, we are going to use, these recommendations. We are encouraging now the chairs to write them in the, final version, and then we will try to disseminate as much as possible these recommendations within UNICA, to the leadership of UNICA universities, to the policymakers in Europe. And also, it was, I think, very important today to involve the working groups of UNICA, which are very active, and they will be able to voice also to all other colleagues, in UNICA universities, all these very interesting ideas. So I think it's time now to stop here. Thanks again to everyone, and looking forward to seeing you online in other UNICA events. Please look at the UNICA website. There are many things going on after the summer break. We are looking forward to continuing to working with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the holidays and the summer.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for your support and participation.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.